Hello and welcome to a new Italian PNC video. Today we'll be doing the 10th episode of the Nos Confunden's Terra Infinita map series. So for returning viewers, you already know what's going on. You already know what we're looking at, you know how crazy this map is, you know how crazy this universe is, but for those that do not know, well, this is a map of the entire universe, but not as we know it. It's the universe based on the Terra Infinita concept, which means that according to Nos Confunden's map, the plane of existence is infinite, or at least semi-infinite, and there's so many planes of existence that link between each other without anything called space in between. Although there's masses, although there's substances that just connect the two, there is no such thing as space as we know it, so an empty void. Instead, there's always lands, there's always connections, there's always seas or ozone layers or stuff like that that connects a land to each other. In this series, we have looked up very many of these lands. In this moment, we are currently to the point where all of the ones included in this red circle, or well, more like an outline, have been already discovered and are already being talked about in this series. Today we'll be continuing from where we left off, as we finished, or at least almost finished. I'm gonna just skip over a couple of these minor ones. We basically finished the entire eastern hemisphere and went even more. Almost 2/3 of the entire series is done. I don't know how much longer I will continue the series. I might want to finish it in this episode, at least a couple topics that I want to talk about more, but definitely there's still stuff to see in the western hemisphere, or half of this map. And let's just get into it, because you know how interesting this gets. First of all, before we actually get into the the specifics, remember this map tries to connect mythology and the knowledge of the ancients to modern day knowledges of, the planes of existence. So while we have things like, our Earth, as seen in this map, and the ice walls, well, there's also things that, connect to mythology, like Asgard, the Mermaid Islands. Then we have places from the Bible, so the lands of Anak. Then there's places like Geminia. There's places that connect to ancient Egyptian mythology, ancient Greek mythology, ancient Nordic mythology. And what we'll be doing today is look at one of those places that is very much connected to the ancient Greek pantheon. Any of these planes of existence can have lore by itself simply regarding the plane of existence, or some lore that can be explained only through the knowledge of mythology. So what we'll be doing today is exactly this thing I'm talking about. We'll be starting by the lands of Hercules. In fact, it's probably one of the most interesting parts of the map that have been left out from the ones we've already talked about. The lands of Hercules are part of their own specific I guess I could call these galaxies, these connections, you know what I mean? Like, you see how all of this is connected by a single type of layer? These white layers can be ice. Usually these refer to ice, which is not the ice that we would intend on a plane of existence. Instead, it is the ice that is so thick and so strong that cannot be passed through usual means, which is why planes of existence are very divided one between each other, and it's extremely hard to pass from one to the next. These planes of existence, which we already talked about in part, as we did the part where Aquila, Ara, Scutum, and even Corvus were explained, are all connected by this thick layer of ice. And they go all the way to this place, which we'll be talking about in this video. But let's just start with the lands of Hercules, probably the most interesting part of the video. First of all, let's see what the lands of Hercules actually look like. There's a thick layer of ice, or at least what appears to be ice, impassable of course, that, just connects every part of it, until in the east there are some outflows, some rivers you could say, although obviously this is not water as we intended. And there are parts of them that actually, are not connected. So although the ice walls in the east are very much impassable, we can see that in the west, in the west they're basically impassable, while in the east there's areas you can pass through, which means that to arrive to the lands of Hercules, you would have to either go through the Mercury Ocean. Okay, First of all, this is great. They actually tell us what this ocean is made for. A lot of the times we have to guess what the oceans are made of, because unless it's specified that it is made of some sort of water, it can be made of any liquid, while in this case, very clearly Mercury ocean, which means that these oceans are made of mercury, which is why the lands in the lands of Hercules, which seem to have exactly the same color as the Mercury ocean, they're not impassable. Mercury is definitely a substance that is passable through, but they don't really give life to anything. But you can see that near the continents that are inside the lands of Hercules, there's a thin layer of what appears to be water that actually can give life to these areas, which is a recurring theme we've seen with a lot of these lands in the Terra Infinita map. Also, it appears that the northern half of this area here is part of the abyssal ocean, which seems to be some sort of water, some sort of like H2O. So I assume that this area right here would be passable through the usual means of navigation, although since Mercury has a higher density, it would kind of like lock off, as you can see here, as the abyssal ocean doesn't fit into the lands of Hercules, and the entirety of the lands of Hercules seem to be in the same material on the Mercury ocean. So yeah, that was the starting point in the geography, and then of course it comes to the things that we probably might be more interested in. There seems to be 4 major lands in the lands of Hercules, which make up this entire plane of existence. There also seems to be just one star that goes around the system and no rings, so as you can see, while places like lands of Jupiter and Earth itself seem to have like different rings where different continents are exposed, the lands of Hercules are just one united plane of existence. So now let's get into the specifics. What exactly are these 4 continents that make up the lands of Hercules? We have the Tierra de los Minerales, Ras el Gethi, Tierra del Sol Nero, and Cajam. So of course I can't mention this word, because even if you all know that this just means black in Spanish, you never know what YouTube will do if I actually mention it. So I'll just say Nero as you would say it in my native language. That said, we also can see that the lands of Hercules are divided into these 4 places, but there's also this very, very small yellow part inside of them, which seems to be divided by the rest of the continents, which also seems to be an island, so that could be the core of the plane of existence, which brings to life the rest, but I can't say that for certain. So now that we established the geography and how this actually looks like, let's talk about the mythology part. So first of all, we can talk about the Tierra de los Minerales. So the Tierra de los Minerales is literally translated to the land of the minerals. So you might be asking, what does Hercules have to do with the land of the minerals? And for that to be answered, we have to first talk about who Hercules is. I'll be very short because otherwise we'll be here for the entire day, but Hercules is a mythological figure in ancient history of the Greeks and also of the Romans, where there is this man that through different actions he is bound to do 12 labors for a king of a certain Greek city called Eurystheus, and Eurystheus commands him to do these 12 labors so that he can kind of redeem himself after he killed his wife. Although the killing of his wife was not made by Hercules under normal circumstances, in fact, it was the queen of the mythological gods of ancient Greece, also called Hera, and she basically made Hercules go mad and kill his family because she found out that Hercules was the son of Zeus, which is the king of the gods, and also a mortal, which, you know, Hera being the wife of Zeus, she really didn't like, you know, the cheating. This was a very recurrent theme in Greek mythology, but this doesn't really matter to the story as much as it matters to the fact that Hercules has to do these 12 labors to redeem himself, and Eurystheus, this king, is kind of taking advantage of it because he can get stuff from these labors, and also his final objective is to have Hercules killed. This comes to place in the 12th labor, which is the last labor of Hercules, where Eurystheus, at this point very disappointed by the fact that Hercules hasn't died in the labor so far, commands him to go all the way down to Hades, which is the afterlife of the ancient Greeks, and to actually get Cerberus and bring it back to Eurystheus, or himself. And if you don't know, Cerberus is this terrifying creature that is made of 3 dog heads and the body of like a beast, and the tail of a serpent or a dragon, and it's a terrifying beast that guards the Hades, the underworld, from the mortal souls that want to pass it. And that you can see why it would be probably impossible for anybody, but Hercules has a hand upon his sleeve, and that is the fact that he's a demigod, which gives him a lot of powers that mortals wouldn't have normally. So in this circumstance, Hercules is very, very careful and does this challenge very, very diplomatically. So first of all, he gets into the cave that brings to the underworld through the city of Tenerum in Laconia, which, by the way, it's a place in the region of Greece called the Peloponnese, in the southern half of the Peloponnese. It's actually basically the area that the Spartan people we know about lived in. So I think that's just a coincidence, but it's a fun fact that I learned about. Also, just to be sure, the reason we're talking about this is because the Terra de los Minerales, which means land of the minerals, is in a way just a name to call the underworld for the Greeks. And this is because the underworld for the Greeks was ruled by Hades, also called Pluto by the Romans, and Pluto, or Hades, which, by the way, yes, Hades is both the name of the place and the name of the god. Don't get too mixed up in it. It's how they did it back then. And basically, Hades is not just the king of the dead, the ruler of the dead souls that bring to the underworld, the ruler of the underworld. No, he's also the land of all the minerals that are rich. Basically, he's the ruler of generally anything that has to do with like precious minerals, so diamonds, gold, silver. You choose basically, and that's what the Hades is also called, like the land of minerals, because of course Pluto being the ruler of the minerals, he's like the god of riches, and that all swells together into becoming this, this nickname for the underworld. So in this map, in the map of the Terra Infinita, Nos Confunden Terra Infinita, it shows the Tierra de los Minerales, so the underworld, as a part of the lands of Hercules. And this is in fact important because you can see that in the other plane of existence, the lands of Mars, which is literally Mars in this map, we can see Elysium. And if you don't remember, well, Elysium is literally like I would call it like the little heaven of the underworld in Greek mythology. So under this map we can see that basically it divided the Greek afterlife into two separate places. One is like the heaven in the lands of Mars, and one is like the rest of it, which is in the lands of Hercules. But don't be confused, the afterlife wasn't like definitely negative. It was, of course, it had negative connotation because it was the places where the dead were, but it wasn't like a place of torture like it was in the Christian Bible and hell. So continuing with the myth, Hercules goes down this Terra de los Minerales, it arrives to the underworld, and he meets up with Hades, or Pluto himself, the god of the underworld. And instead of like trying to get Cerberus from him very violently, he just asks Pluto if he can get Cerberus and come back to the world of the living, bring Cerberus to the king Eurystheus, and come back to bring Cerberus back. And Pluto is, of course, very, very confused by all of this, but he kind of accepts the challenge because he can see that Hercules went through a lot. Remember, this is his 12th challenge, his 12th labor, and he's just done with it. He can't take any more of them. So what he does is tells Hercules, well, okay, you can get Cerberus back, but only if you manage to fight him off and defeat him in a hand-to-hand combat. Of course, this would be insane to even try. Remember, Cerberus is this beast, this creature, enormous creature that could beat any mortal, but Hercules is just that guy. He just gets it, and he is strong enough to do this. So he beats Cerberus in a hand-to-hand combat with no weapons and manages to subdue him and brings him back to the land of the living, where he shows it to Eurystheus and brings it back to Pluto. Eurystheus is mad with anger about this. He was so convinced that this would eventually kill Hercules, and see him succeed brings to an end to the labors and would actually result with the death of Eurystheus in a future of the story. But this is where the story ends in the terms of the Terra de los Minerales, so we have seen what this refers to in the map of the lands of Hercules. Now let's get to the second place. We have the Ras Al Ghafi. So Ras Al Ghafi, actually, you know what, I'm gonna keep Ras Al Ghafi for the third place, for the last place, because you will see why. But we have Khajan. So Khajan, look, I did my research, alright, and Khajan only gets one result, and that is what it says, what it means in Latvian, and it means on foot. travel by foot in Latvian. And that only explains the fact that basically Kajam is traversable by foot with no ulterior modes of transportation, which, I mean, it's a great description, doesn't really give us many insight in the whole mythology aspect, but I will take that. I will take that information. So let's pass to the Terra del Sol Nero here, which of course translates to, in case you didn't know, the land of the Black Sun. This is Spanish, the creator of the map is indeed Spanish. Nos Confunden literally means they confuse us in Spanish. Okay, let's continue. So the land of the Black Sun. Well, fellas, the Black Sun is its own deal. I think I mentioned this in the past on this channel. I will say what it means, but be careful when you research it. So the Black Sun is a sun wheel symbol that takes its roots from ancient Indo-European symbols of life, like other similar symbols that I can't show, but let's just say that one very popular symbol that the Germans used in the Second World War, well, that was a symbol inspired by those ancient symbols. I can't show it, of course, for very clear reasons, but you just know that other parts of the world do still use that symbol. The Finnish military still uses that in aviation, and Indians and the Buddhists still very much use the symbol. Once again, can't really show it, but you get what I mean. You get what symbol I'm referring to. It's that symbol with very, very bad connotations nowadays. And the Black Sun still has the same connotations, especially since its associations with Germany started during World War II, and, you know, they kind of co-opted the symbol that was originally like a bringer of life, and a wheel, of course, the symbol of, like, you know, continuation and the future as it spins around, and they kind of made this this very, very, very bad symbol that just, you know, is associated with their ideology, both in modern day German, I mean modern day movements of the sort, and the original one in the early 20th century. So to not get too much into the thick of it, basically this land is the land of that place, it's the land of this symbol, which was originally a symbol of life. But then there's another explanation that could be given, and I think this is the most likely for the land of the Black Sun, and it is that this land is existing in eternal eclipse. Because what else is the Black Sun if not an eclipse, right? That is literally what a Black Sun would look like to somebody that would see it. So the Terra del Sol Nero is literally a land that lives in eternal eclipse, and the eclipse was a moment of like change, but also stability, a moment of stability before the change for the ancient people of Greece. So we could interpret this Terra del Sol Nero as some place that you arrive to when you reach the lands of Hercules, and you actually, you know, get to see how this entire place looks like before you actually get into the other realms, into the other continents. Finally, we have Ras Algethi. And Ras Algethi, you have to do a bit of research to get to what it actually means in the context of the lands of Hercules, but I think I got it right. And that is, in Chinese, or in China, this Ras Algethi, which is a star in the common consensus, is actually called Ti Tso. And that translates to the seat of the emperor, in this case referring to Hercules. So this is the place where Hercules rules. In another word, this is the main continent of this plane of existence. As you can see, both the size corroborates it, because clearly it is the biggest of the continents we have seen so far. It also seems to be the more vegetated, with the most vegetation, so the one that is the most likely to harbor life, and probably it is the one more stable enough to sustain civilization. So this is the lands of Hercules. A land made by 4 continents that all have meanings in mythology, or, you know, other connotations, other meanings to them, but they all share the common trait of being habitable, of being something you can live through. And we can go from the one that is literally the underworld of the dead in ancient Greece, and to the places like with Eternal Eclipse, to the places that would just be a continent that you can traverse by foot, and finally to places like Ras Algethi, which you can just, you know, the place where Hercules lives, according to this map. Once again, I refer to the fact that Hercules could be even considered like another figure. There's theories that this map refers to the ancient gods as some sort of aliens or stuff like that. We've seen it with the whole Nibiru deal, but let's not get too much into the thick of it, because once again, if we do, then we'll be here for 4 hours, which we really don't want to. So let's continue with Pegasus now. Pegasus is another plane of existence in this same chain, also connected by these like thick ice blocks, but it's also connected to the lands of Jupiter by this kind of like brownish matter, brownish mass. I thought this was some sort of mineral kind of mass, so clearly untraversable, even worse than the ice is. So yeah, it's probably impossible to go from the lands of Jupiter to the Pegasus, so it's probably more likely for it to be made through the Mercury Ocean. But the lands of Pegasus actually are in the Abyssal Ocean, and we can see the difference of color right here. The northern part here is made by the same color as the Abyssal Ocean, so we can assume it is some sort of water. This part right here seems to be the same color as the Mercury Ocean, and then we have the actual water as we know it, like the seas, that, you know, surround the entirety of these continents. So as far as for Pegasus, the mythological meaning doesn't really have much to do with the plane of existence itself, but it still is connected to the lands of Hercules and, you know, the Cassiopeia, which is what we will see later. So basically, Pegasus in ancient mythology, I'm sure you already know what Pegasus is, like as a creature, but I will refer it into the historical context of ancient mythology of the Greeks. So Pegasus was born from the blood of Medusa, which is the Gorgon, the creature with had like a head full of serpents, and that would be able to petrify anything that met her eyesight. That is very, very well known in popular culture, honestly, at this point, so I probably don't even have to explain it, but if you didn't know, that was what it does. And Pegasus was literally born of the blood that came out of Medusa after it was cut off from the Greek hero Perseus. And Pegasus became a winged horse capable of flight. In Greek mythology, the major role of Pegasus was the trusted companion of Bellerophon, which was another hero from classical history, and it was famous because he was the one who killed the legendary Chimera. You know, the creature made of very different parts of animals, very big creature, devastating cities, destroying everything, until Bellerophon on Pegasus came to fight it and won. So you can see that Pegasus really doesn't really describe much from this plane of existence. The only thing that I can see is that maybe it's referring to the fact that since it's not really connected to any, there's no this, you know, there's no connection you can see here or here that makes it so that you can just, you know, arrive to it by sea, then maybe what is referring to is the fact that just like Pegasus, you have to arrive to it through the sky. So somehow you have to go through, like above the ice walls in this case, and actually reach it from the positions from the sea, and then reach the lands in it. But that's kind of all I got on Pegasus, honestly. Now let's get to Cassiopeia. So the description of this plane of existence is pretty peculiar. First of all, we can see that it's also very, very different in what it looks like. This like icy mass, I would describe it as such. It's like, I would say this is like between the ice. This is probably more close to the ice we know than this kind of thick ice that is dividing these planes of existence. But the rest seems to be the same color as the Mercury Ocean, so... oh, actually no, sorry, the Abyssal Ocean. So this is probably water, and the good thing is that Cassiopeia is definitely reachable compared to Pegasus by, you know, navigable means, because there is an entrance right here. Although the question is, if this is ice, then do you have to break the ice to get here? Well, I don't know, but probably yes. Geographically wise, it seems to be these long landmasses that are, you know, surrounded by water. And there's one sun as well, only one star. And yeah, it's supposed to go like this, but it's very, very close to the center, so I wonder if this is even livable as a plane of existence. Mythology-wise, Cassiopeia has to do with you know, there's a whole myth to it. Now I will explain it very shortly, but I hope you enjoy. In Greek mythology, Cassiopeia was the daughter of Aeolus, and she was a nymph who professed her beauty as an absolute truth. The gods of ancient Greece were very petty, as everybody knows, they were doing stuff to humans all the time, and when they heard that she was saying that she was more beautiful than Nereides, which was the wife of Poseidon, which was the second in command of the Greek gods, the ruler of the oceans, and by the way, we already saw Poseidon on this map. I think it was somewhere here, I remember Neptune, okay. Neptune and Poseidon, by the way, same thing, and there we go. Lands of Nereides. So you can see why this would exist and also this would exist. You know, it all links up in the context of mythology. So yeah, she was going around, this queen, she was going around saying that she was better and more beautiful than the wife of Poseidon, Nereides, and the gods decided to punish her. And how they decided to punish her? Well, they decided that she was going to be punished through the land that she ruled. And that way she was basically seen as a scapegoat for the people of the land when the gods sent to the land a horrible marine monster called Cetus or Cetus. And this terrifying creature started eating people, obviously, and destroying the land that she ruled over, which, by the way, and this is very interesting to me, I was not aware of it before I reread this myth, because I knew this myth from, like, my childhood. I read about it in the, like, ancient history, but, ancient mythology, but I didn't know she was the queen of Ethiopia, which is in Africa, which honestly kind of makes me wonder why all depictions of her are like so white, but whatever, doesn't mean anything. Yeah, basically she was the queen of Ethiopia, and the entirety of Ethiopia, especially the city she ruled, which I assume it was something like Aksum, was being destroyed by this marine monster, which also kind of connects to the whole, you know, Leviathan thing, but we can like look into it way later. But the thing is, the oracle of the city, after this was happening, went like, okay, so this is the fault of Cassiopeia, obviously, because, you know, she angered the gods, and the only way to repay the gods is to offer something that Cassiopeia loves in sacrifice to them. And the only thing Cassiopeia loved more than herself was her daughter. So the oracle prophesied that the only way to end the monster's ravaging of the land was to offer Cassiopeia's daughter, which was called Andromeda, in sacrifice to the monster. So she was like literally tied to a chair or something like that, or tied to a rock, and she was offered in sacrifice to the monster. And this was gonna happen until who showed up? None other than Perseus, the same guy who let Pegasus be born once he killed Medusa and cut off her head. So the same hero that gave birth to Pegasus in some way also came into the rescue of Cassiopeia and slain the monster Cetus. And that happens in a way that basically resulted in the liberation of Cassiopeia, which became the wife of Perseus. So yeah, that connects these myths all together. But then there's also Andromeda, so literally the plane of existence that is referred to as the one that we talked about in the story of Cassiopeia, now is right above it. So Andromeda is literally one of the most interesting planes of existence, not because of the mythologic lore, but just because of how it looks. Like, look at this very clearly, like it's very weird, isn't it? Okay, first of all, one sun, only one sun, once again. It seems to be a recurring theme here, like just compared to the lands of Jupiter, we have like a bunch of suns everywhere, and now here it's just one sun. And this plane of existence is surrounded by one major ice wall, but it has breaches in it, and definitely you can go through here with water. And not only that, but it also have a second inner ice wall, which is like made of little rocks or something like that. Oh wait, are these moons? Oh my god, I didn't realize this. If you zoom into it, this looks more like moons than rocks, actually. Oh my god, that's insane. Are those moons? Oh, I don't know about this. I didn't realize before zooming in this far. That's actually crazy. I don't think we ever seen moons be depicted as this. I might be wrong, honestly, but it does kind of look like it when you zoom into it. But the rest of this is just how weird the geography of this is. So there's this sun that really is close to the land, and it doesn't really go very much far, so you can see this entire land is illuminated, which means that the vegetation, as you can see here, is very much able to sustain life. And then there's two mountain chains right in the middle, and then there's a crack in the middle. So what interests me is also that in ancient Greek, or rather just Greek, Andromeda as a word means the ruler of men. It means the one who controls humanity. So that just brings over another plethora of like information or slash theories that you could kind of like think about, because what does Andromeda have to do with like humans? Like, we've talked about the fact that these lands could be inhabited by the descendants of humans. Like, we saw the fact that probably what lives in Elysium is the same humans that lived here in ancient Greek times. So does that mean that their Andromeda is like the lands of rulers of humans? Like, all the famous rulers from history come to live to Andromeda after death? These are far-fetched theories. There's no real like substance to it, but you know, it could be a thing. We've seen things like this happen in the context of this map. So, you know, could be. Next we have the infinite lands. This is very small as a plane of existence, but it just was very curious, honestly, because it's very clear what it's trying to do. First of all, we have a black core. All the continents of this very small plane of existence seem to be black, which obviously means they're completely unlivable, and I think this is supposed to be some sort of self-recycling plane of existence where all the time these continents that are ejected on this outer layer, or I guess not outer, just the second ring, are kind of like meshed together back into the first ring, like a continuously recreating black hole, and then they're spat out again as different land masses, which would explain the whole infinite land aspects. Also, there is a sun, but it doesn't look like it gave birth to any life. Once again, the color of it just screams this is unlivable. Also, the fact that it's not connected to anything in any way, not even a passage, nothing. It's just like, it's just blocked. It's just blocked from everything. So yeah, probably not a not a great place to live in. You know, it's just not great. But yeah, it's definitely interesting. Infinite planes. We have here the Homam and the Biham. No idea what these are. Biham literally just, like, it's just the same thing, just but with life, I guess, because there is vegetation and water. Great for them. Homam is a bit more interesting. Homam seems to be a very like maze-looking plane of existence, where the mazes of ice kind of like protect the inner lands of this plane of existence. Definitely, if there's life here, I can't imagine what the culture of the people that live here would look like when they discover that this is what their plane of existence looked like. It's like having two layers of the Terra Infinita. Like, one is the layer that you have here, and then you finally manage to exit, and then you discover that it's like recreating an entirety of the universe. So that's crazy, honestly. Then we have the okay, I actually didn't even notice this when I was scrolling. The lands of the insectoids. Honestly, I want to talk about this in a later video. I mean, it's obvious what this is referring to, but I want to just get to the last part of the video, which is the Templo de Zeus, El Templo de Zeus, because clearly this is the core of what we're talking about in the, you know, Greek mythology sense. So this is the Temple of Zeus. It's a huge plane of existence called the Temple of Zeus, which to me, this is where Zeus resides. I know I talked about the lands of Jupiter, which of course would have to do with it because Jupiter and Zeus are the same thing, and we have seen the lands of Zeus inside the lands of Jupiter, so how are there two lands of Zeus? So this could be the lands where Zeus was like created first. Tebet, there's a lot of names here that have to do with like Europa, Tebet. These are all names that have to do with the like birthing stories of Zeus, like the origins of Zeus, Ganymedes. But the Temple of Zeus could be the place where he is resting, because how much are the Greek gods still in like our common consciousness, and just how much do they intervene? Not much, as far as I know. If you even believe there are any like realities to it. But in the mythological sense, it's clear that Zeus kind of stopped caring at some point. So is it possible that he went to like the best, like a heaven for the gods, like a place for all the gods to be in? And this could be the Temple of Zeus, because it's highly protected. It's full of vegetation, it's full of life, it has even some ice walls to it, rings, it's got a sun, it's got everything that you would want for life to exist in it. So to me, this seems like a possibility of a place you would just have a temple for Zeus erected by the humans, us in the past, and he made a plane of existence of its own, or found it to continue existing in, and maybe brought all the gods with him. This could be the thing. This could be the explanation why all the other planes of existence that have to do with the gods seem almost dying. Like, you see these places like the planets of Neptune. I mean, clearly these are supposed to refer to like the Greek gods of the ocean, but they're dead looking. Like, what is this red thing here? Same thing with places like the lands of Jupiter. Could it be that the ancient Greek gods just came to the Temple of Zeus, and that's where they decided to spend the rest of their life with? Maybe that's the case, or maybe not. Either way, that's it for this episode. And we're going to finish it by connecting the places we talked today with the ones we talked last time. Straight line up from Andromeda, all the way to the Temple of Zeus. There we go, right there. And there we go. So as you can see at this point, the map is just like, we almost did everything that had to be done. Like, it's getting to the point where what remains is very, very small. I am undecided on whether or not to continue this series. I'm going to be very honest. This series has been going on for, I'm not even kidding, 1 year and a half. I started the first video of this 1 year and a half ago, if not even more, on April of 2023. All of 2023 ended, 2024 is about to end, and I'm still making videos on the series. Of course, there's so much knowledge to have here that it makes sense that it would take this amount of time, but it shouldn't, surprise you that at some point you kind of get sick of it, and there's less and less information to find out every video. Like, this time I was surprised by how much there was still to cover here, but some of these places I just cannot cover in good conscience about with having information. Like, there's places that still interest me, like the Lands of Time, like this deserves Frozen Lands, Arcane Lands, this deserves videos, but then you have places like shit. Okay, I'm kidding, but you know what I mean. There's places that you don't really have much information on, and even if you research them, probably wouldn't find much. So I'm not gonna say this is the last video of the series, because I can't be for certain. If I find enough information to make an 11th episode, I will be doing so, but otherwise this might be the last video. And if that's so, then the next video of Nos Confunden Terra Infinita will be the 10 video compendium, just as I did with the Beyond the Ice Walls original series. I will do the same for Nos Confunden, so that you will be able to watch this entire thing in one go, obviously with parts cut so that it is more digestible, instead of watching every single video, which would probably be 10-hour long? Probably not that much, but still extremely long. I'll try to get it to at least 5 hours or something like that. But if you're interested in that, and if you're interested in the continuation of Terra Infinita, and you're just interested in whatever type of project I do on this channel, then I suggest to keep yourself subscribed to me and just enjoy watching more videos that I make. And if you like this video, I hope you like the next. See you all in the next one.